Yeah, it's
Oh,
going now.
I've never used this.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Barely Conscious and Streaming. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the topic. Oh, you think you're an entrepreneur? It's me, Aubria, and my two friends, Raven and Maricella, and we're just going to talk like we're having tea, and you get to be here. And so I'm going to have Raven introduce herself and then Maricella, and then we'll get right into it.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Raven O'Neill. I'm a serial entrepreneur, podcaster, women's champion. Yeah. Quick and sweet. Let's just. I was thinking for a hot second we should do like introductions of each other.
Maybe we should do that. So you know what? Since that was your idea, Raven, I'm gonna have you introduce Maricella, and then maybe Maricella can introduce me, and then I'll introduce you again.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And make it really confusing for our audience. But these, the point of this is this is we're really kind of stream of consciousness for those of you who haven't looked at any of the episodes before. And so we're literally just riffing, and I hope that you will walk away with, the nuggets we finally drop, but there will be some shenanigans. So just chillax and enjoy. All right, Raven.
All right. Maricella is a entrepreneur and podcaster and educational. Now I can't remember where she teaches. She is a professor. She teaches entrepreneurship and she's a badass. We just met each other, so I have no idea.
Great. Thank you.
She's pretty much one of the most awesome people out there. We have a ton in common.
Yeah, we do.
Working for, was it Elevate? No.
Elevate.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, you know.
She's got the corporate background, the entrepreneurial background. She's a professor. She's just pretty much a fucking badass.
Thank you.
Can I cuss?
Well, you already did. And so what am I gonna do? Like, it happened, right?
I can't say the name of my podcast if I can't cuss.
I love your face.
But you know what's really funny though, Maricella, is that was the one word that wasn't a cuss in my house. And so I could use that word with my mom. That's why I didn't have a problem being on your podcast.
There you go.
But all right. So Maricella, go. Oh wait, you're introducing me.
I'm introducing Aubria, who is a badass attorney, children's book author, founder of Scrappy Girl Project, one of the smartest people I've met. And she, what? You have done a lot of really interesting stuff, and the way you think about things is just very different, which I consider great. What else? I don't know how much I have to go into it.
Author, did we cover that? Like
children's book author.
Children's books.
And professor. You're also a professor. I forget that.
Yeah, I used to be a professor. Yeah.
For 10 years, right?
Yeah, I know. I look like a baby, but I was a professor for 10 years. No, that's so true. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce.
No, because we need to dive into your background in retail too.
No, that's right.
Is there anything you haven't done? I think that's the question.
I wanted to be a Renaissance woman when I was 16 years old, and I think I've achieved that. I learned about these people, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and I thought, I want to be like one of those guys. I didn't think for a second, oh, let me go find a woman from that time period and try to be like her. Like, I saw those guys, I was like, oh, that guy's a scientist, an artist, and he writes too. Like, what? I want to do, and he gets people to pay him to do that. Like, he has patrons. And so it was for me, that was very intriguing, right? And then I sought out to try to make it happen, and then I guess God made it happen. He made it possible because here I am with a lot of information just like running through my brain all the time, which sometimes I forget things that I know. Um, and, so to the point where you can ask me a question and I'll tell you, I don't know. And then, like, a file will like move to the front of the the vault in my head and be like, no, we have a file on that. And then I'll like have a moment where I have a savant moment, is what we tell people sometimes, where like you're like, wait, I just had a basic question and I feel like you're giving me a dissertation on this right now. um and I think both of you have definitely experienced that from me at least one time already. But I'm actually gonna introduce you now, Raven, because we got to get to business.
Okay.
And so I started a rumor last year about Raven that she is the bridge to your success. And I
Ooh.
have built on that. And part of the reason I say that is because she's just one of those people who has just a wealth of knowledge. She's a businesswoman, she's a marketing queen. She's not just like a podcaster who uses like what's available to you out here. Like she's not like me, where I'm like, oh, what's the easiest way to do this? No, this lady, she taught herself how to actually produce a podcast. And that is no small feat. I know, because
No.
I saw what it entails and I said, I'm not doing that. Um,
Smart. That's really smart.
but what I love about Raven is she's always thinking about ways to help the people that she's connected with. And even the people that she may not be directly connected with, she's just always looking for ways to be awesome. And I think that's really important. Her background, she used to be in the C-suite, working in marketing and business development. And now she has a magazine, a podcast, a marketing agency, and she's also a speaker. We forgot to say that about Maricella, who's also a speaker. But basically, there's a lot of overlap between the three of us. And so, what's really cool about this conversation is it's a very diverse looking set of women here. And we're showing that, like, this is how an entrepreneur could look. So if you look like us, if you've had at least one of the experiences we've had, this could be you, if you're into it, like, no pressure. um, but thank you so much for tuning in. We're just gonna like kind of get right into it. And so my first question, I'm just gonna hit it to Maricella, um, because I really want to like learn about what made you decide to become a podcast host. So we'll start there. We'll kind of like start with that, like, like the change that you made, and then we'll really get into the nitty gritty of like what it means to really be an entrepreneur as well.
Thank you for having me. This is fun already. So I know it will continue to be fun. It's funny when you were saying the name of the episode and when you sent me the invite of like, oh, you think you're an entrepreneur? I was like, actually, I don't think I'm an entrepreneur. It was a kind of a little weird to think about it that way. But yes, I created a podcast, which it has been a little bit on hiatus. It's called Should I Just Quit My Job? And the reason I started it was I've been a podcast lover for years. Like I listen to podcasts constantly. And I had done that in my old work when I was at Elevate Network. I had helped develop and produce, and I hosted the podcast. And so when I decided to leave my 11-year career at that company, which was a very hard decision because I had like my whole heart and soul invested in it, I found myself a little bit lost. So I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. My identity was completely enmeshed in my old job. And I honestly started the podcast out of, on one hand, a little joke. So when people would ask me, what are you going to do? I would just say, I'm going to start a podcast and call it shit, I just quit my job. But also because I really needed to talk to people who had gone through this. I really needed advice. I really needed to know that there were other people out there who had gone through the same confusion, grief, everything that goes around with like kind of changing your identity and in this case it was just my work identity, but like I wanted that. And so I had to solve my own problem, which is I guess the best way to go about this.
Mhm.
And that's why I decided to start it. And it just became really fun.
No, that's really awesome. And can I just say, like, it's also really slick too? Because what I actually heard there was you needed some like free coaching and
Yeah.
training and development. And so you found like really cool and interesting people that knew the stuff that you needed to know and was kind of like, hey, come on my podcast.
Yeah.
And to me, like that like really just goes to show that like as an entrepreneur, you have to kind of get creative. Even and sometimes like our subconscious will do it for us, right? Because like I'm sure you didn't like sit down and say, this is my master plan of what I'm gonna do. Like,
Not at
you
all.
know, as much as many entrepreneurs like to pretend that like we had these master plans and they just worked perfectly.
In fact, I didn't even have a master plan. I literally posted on LinkedIn, I'm going through a career change. I've been quiet. Anyone want to talk to me about this on the record? That was
Yeah.
it. I didn't know I was actually going to turn it into a podcast.
Yeah.
It was just too good to not share.
No, I love that. I really love that. And it's like for me, like what I love about it is the fact that like we always think we need to pay for a coach. We always think that we need to pay for good and sound advice. But sometimes it's just having conversations with people that we already know and already trust who can pour into us, who are willing to do so. And they have these insights about us that they can provide like valuable information that will actually help us thrive in like these new journeys that we decide to go on. So no, that's like really awesome. And so Raven, I'm gonna go left field. Like I want to ask you about your podcast, but I'm not. I want to know what made you start a women's magazine. Like what was the impetus for that?
Well, let's rewind, and I've pivoted because that's what we do in entrepreneurship. It is not a magazine anymore. It is a weekly newsletter, and I just stuff it with the same content. But originally, I was back in the day with LinkedIn. I wanted to share news articles at least once a day on LinkedIn. And so I was scouring the news for stories focused on women, about women, by women, for women. And I was having to go all over the place. There was no central location. So I created the website FemLed News to pull all of that content onto one platform. It ended up being too big a lift with as much as the podcast is a lift. So I pivoted. You can still go sign up. I send a weekly email and it's just stuffed with all the same content.
No, that's awesome. And like it's so funny because that's why I created Barely Conscious in Streaming, because I get a ton of questions, like people reaching out, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I ask you about this random post that like I don't even remember because I like scheduled it 90 days ago. And so it was my way to like have these live conversations with really smart and cool people that I know, so that people could just go and like listen to the video later. Like, and so like that was my goal in starting this podcast. And the name, and I'm calling it a podcast because you called it a podcast, right?
I mean, it is.
I was definitely like avoiding calling it that. I think and I think part of the reason is like I associate work with a podcast. And like I feel like I'm not doing enough work yet for it to be like at least like the labor that I know that like people who actually like produce podcasts like put in. That was just me trying not to like be like, oh, I'm biting your, I'm taking this and pretending that what I'm doing is a podcast, but I definitely see how it could be considered as such. And so I'm going to own the live podcast moniker that you gave to it. Because ultimately, like, that's what it is, right? Maybe I didn't edit it, but but you get to, but I also love, like, for me, I think we live in a society, that is constantly evolving, right? Oh my God, that sounded like so chat GPT. I think I've been spending too much time. Um, but like we like, I mean, we've gone through like a crazy amount of change just since the year started, right?
I was gonna say we're kind of in a society that's constantly devolving, if you think about it.
So I mean, it doesn't matter. You don't edit it.
Oh yeah, no, I don't. I definitely don't plan on editing. I think this is where like I accept the like I've been called lazy as like a kid, like growing up, people would call me lazy, but it wasn't because like it's not for the reason that you think. It's because I would like figure out easier ways to do stuff because I just didn't want to like put in the time with certain things. So I'd always like, so if I like did something, like if something took me 5 hours, like a chore that I had on like the weekend took me 5 hours on a Saturday, the entire 5 hour period, I would literally sit there thinking, how can I not spend 5 hours doing this ever again in my life? And that's just kind of how I look at work, even things I love doing, like, because I feel like things we love doing, which a lot of times when we become entrepreneurs, like it's stuff that we actually love doing and are good at that we ultimately turn into businesses, right? I mean, sure, maybe there are some weirdos out there that are creating businesses where they're doing things they absolutely hate, but like I think the most people are doing work that if they're starting a business, like there's some enjoyment that they're getting from it, and they have some natural knack for it, so it doesn't feel like they're having to put in that kind of labor, right? And so that's like the element of entrepreneurship like I want us to shift into, like how did you figure out what your strengths were, and what you were going to play up in this season of your entrepreneurial journeys. And either one of you can start.
I haven't figured it out. So Raven,
I just try everything. I'm a tester. Like I'm going to test it. I'm going to give it a little bit of time. I launched the website, the news website. It ended up being too much of a lift, but I was still passionate about the content. I really enjoy writing the newsletters. It's probably one of my favorite things to do. So I just pivoted it.
Yeah.
And I still do it. So I guess it's really just being willing to launch it and try it. And I am a perfectionist. I am trying my darndest these days to just progress over perfection. Just do it. Just give it a try.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I find myself, I am also a little bit of a perfectionist. And I remember telling my team basically almost every day I would tell someone done is better than perfect. And yet I cannot find myself to embody that as I am right now. Like I keep getting in my own way, I would say.
To me, that's a true sign of an entrepreneur. You are going to be able to tell everyone else how to do anything, but you cannot take your own medicine. You're like, I could tell you all day, this is exactly how you're supposed to do your business finances. Ask me to do it. I'm like, no, absolutely not. That's too easy.
Yeah.
It's too logical. Like why are we doing it? And it's so funny you like talked about finances because I was speaking at Maricella's school a few weeks ago. I guess it's like almost a month now, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
And like they asked about like what mistakes I made, and I was like, the biggest mistake was dumping way too much of my personal cash into my businesses. And, and Maricella was like, oh, but it was an investment in yourself. And like, trying to like, basically like coach me through like why it was so awesome. And I was like, nah, bro, like I could have bought a villa in Bali with that money. So like, and I had bitterness towards that, and so like what I'm really like thinking of is like just some of the regrets like you sometimes have as an entrepreneur, right? And I think it's so important to like talk about that because I feel like so like I don't know, I listen to these entrepreneurs all the time and I'm like, why y'all acting like everything's perfect? Stop lying to people. Stop telling them to quit their job. Like like hello coaches, we mean you. Hello consultants, we mean you. Stop telling people to quit their 9 to 5. Okay? Stop selling them a dream that you need their money to buy. Okay? Like because like at the end of the day, like people have to kind of make decisions based on where they are, where they want to go, what they're comfortable with. And we can't create this like facade that either direction is perfect, right? Because you look at like corporate people, right? The people that are partners at firms, the people that are managing directors at financial institutions, the editor-in-chief at New York Times, like there's this facade that like, oh, I've arrived and things are great, and we create these like, do you hear my my corporate voice? But it's like none of these paths are necessarily perfect, right? Like maybe they can be perfect in a particular season, right? And so the next shift I'm thinking of is like how do you decide between, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go all in with this business versus, you know what, I'm gonna like start with a side hustle, make sure I got some clients before I quit my 9 to 5, or before I even start thinking about scaling it to the point where I even want to quit my 9 to 5. So like how did you make that decision, Raven?
Well, first of all, it's a level of risk.
Yeah.
You have to know what your risk tolerance is. You also have to know that nothing is perfect. You're just exchanging things. There's an exchange of things in place. I don't necessarily, I love entrepreneurship and I'm just an entrepreneur through and through. But I don't recommend it if you don't love risk. In full transparency, entrepreneurship can suck. It's a roller coaster. You're going to start out, glitter's going to be shooting out of your eyeballs. You're going to be like, this is the greatest thing ever. And a week later, you're going to be on the floor in your own tears crying. It can be really, really not fun. I mean, every entrepreneur I have talked to in the past, let's even just say from the new year, and I talk to entrepreneurs every day. Every single one has said, I'm thinking about looking for a job, because you think you're going to throw it out there and everyone's just going to come running. It doesn't work like that. Unless you want to throw your Bali savings at it. It doesn't work like that. You're going to launch and you're probably going to hear crickets. And then you show up. It's the consistency and the wanting to keep doing it. That's when it turns around.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But definitely if you're thinking of launching, making the decision, what am I willing to risk?
Yeah. Count the costs, right? It's like you can't just wake up and say, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur tomorrow. Like, no. Do not recommend.
You can. I don't recommend.
do not recommend.
0 stars on that.
I recommend if you want to pay me later to help you pick up the pieces, because I can help with that. But I definitely think that that's something that was like gold, right? Like you have to be thinking about what risk, what risk am I willing to take, but even beyond that, what risk am I capable of taking based on where I am financially, socially? Like, do I have a support system? Am I single? Am I married? Like, will there be income coming if I decide, or, universe or God's like, we're going to make this a training session. You're going to be on the Joseph track. And if you're on the Joseph track, that means it's not the fast track. It's going to take like 13 years. And so, like, if that's the track you're on, is there going to be somebody to cover the bills, right? But also, do you have people around you that are going to encourage you, that are going to pour into you, right? Do you have people that are going to like just bring you food? Cuz like you're so busy working, you're not thinking, "Oh, I need to buy groceries." So like do you have friends that are going to be like, "Wait, did Aubria eat? Let me get some food," and like even just basic stuff like that, right? Are people like, do you have people that check on you? Because like being an entrepreneur gets lonely, right? Where it's like you're spending like 90% of your time throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks.
Yep.
And when you come up short, you're kind of like, all right, I guess I got to come up with like 100 new ideas to throw at the wall again, because like the last 1,000 didn't work, right? And so like, as much as you want to get into it, like talk about, moments and like, I'm not thinking of anything personally from both of you. So like no pressure here on that, but talk about those moments when like stuff didn't stick, and like what did you do, to overcome that, to like, keep that same mindset that, could, so you could like live to fight another day, if you will.
That's the job, really, when you're an entrepreneur. I tell my students all the time, like the first thing I tell them is you're going to try something and it's probably going to suck and it's probably not going to be fun. But then the thing is, you're going to have to try it again, different way, a little bit differently, and it's probably going to suck. You have to try it again. And that's kind of what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
It's exploring and trying things and seeing how it goes. For me, it's, I mean, people around you, I would say, like, honestly, just having people that have gone through similar things, or that I have quite a few close friends who are entrepreneurs. So like having those people to talk to that have gone through it and can give you a little bit of a different perspective and can be like, yeah, it's part of the thing.
Yeah.
Definitely helps. But it is, as Raven said, also about risk. When it comes to the quitting your job thing, obviously I did the thing. But it's about context and it's about understanding, like, what is the risk I'm willing to take? I was willing to take a big risk.
Yeah.
But not everyone has that and not everyone can do that. So definitely think it through.
Yeah, no, and like it's funny, like I remember when I decided to start Scrappy Go Project, it would like it seemed sudden to people, but like I already had a plan in place because I was gonna start Scrappy Go Project like last month. The timeline just like it 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 just kind of came up early, and it was one of those things where I knew I was leaving my big law job, and I had the option of trying to go in-house or trying to go to another law firm, but I didn't like at that stage I was like, no, like I don't want to do that right now. Like I want to bet on myself right now. And so it was one of those things where that was my risk, where I was like, you know what? I've been making people money my whole working life. If I can make other people money with the garbage they've been selling, and that's literally how I put it. I mean, I sold greeting cards for $28.
Wow.
$28. That's like a good meal. Okay.
Wow.
That's like a good meal at a mid-range restaurant. All right. Like a healthy meal. Like you don't got to eat garbage for that. Okay. And like that was in like 2012. Yeah. 2012. I was selling greeting cards for $28 to kind of give you some perspective. Right. And so I was I was used to being around people that were willing to pay for any and everything. And so my mindset was kind of like, whatever I decide to do at Scrappy Girl Project is going to be really good. So if people want good stuff, they're going to sign up, they're going to join me. And if they don't, they won't, you know? And that was just kind of my mindset because I figured, like, at the very least, I can make it available, right? And I had enough runway in my bank account to do that, right? And so like that's why I was able to take that risk. Like I started my big law gig thinking we just gonna put half the check away every month and pay bills. And that, you know, and I could do that because I didn't have like real responsibilities. I kept my rent low, you know. I didn't upgrade my standard of living. You know, do I like nice things? Yes. Do I have a YSL bag? Yes. But I wasn't going to get that YSL bag if I had bills that I needed to pay, right? Because my ultimate goal was being able to fund this dream of starting a company. And it wasn't even about, and I remember when I first started thinking about Scrappy Girl Project, I was thinking of it as a nonprofit, and somebody actually advised me to make it for profit.
Good
And then
advice.
and essentially like at some point turning it into a social enterprise because of, you know, I like to do stuff for free, but you can only do things for free if you have the financial backing to be able to do that. And so, you know, the next thing I want to talk about is price points. Like, how do you charge for things, right? Like, y'all, I know y'all have seen my price points. You know, I know my price points make a lot of people uncomfortable, you know, and in fact, they made me a little bit uncomfortable. But I had a consultant who was like, listen, like, if you're going to do all this stuff you said you're going to be doing, you have to charge accordingly because then you're going to be out of pocket and you shouldn't be out of pocket for your for profit business. Like if someone's paying for a service, they should be paying you enough that they're at least covering the service. Like if you want to make it a nonprofit where you don't make a profit, you shouldn't be paying to help somebody if you don't have the financial backing to do that. And like that was really hard for me because like I come from this like public interest background, like my family, like, you know, my mom will like just, you come to her house, you tell her, oh, I'm hungry, she'll say, oh, just take the food out of the fridge, like not even thinking she needs to eat food later, you know. So like that's kind of like how I grew up, like, you know, that's like the mindset of the people I'm around. And so going into business, you know, I don't know if that's your mindset. Like maybe I want to know more about like what's your mindset about business in this way? Like are you thinking profitability? Are you thinking value add? And like how do you balance the I really want to provide value, but I need to like pay my bills and create a legacy for the people that, you know, are relying on me. Like how do you balance that, you know, as business owners? Raymond.
I mean, there are a million different ways to
Mm-hmm.
approach it. I think that you have to find the one that works for
Mm-hmm.
you. There's the idea that, first of all, and again, going back to, I can tell you how I think you should do it, but I cannot take my own advice. So take it with a grain of salt. But there are all kinds of different ways to do it. I just launched another business with a new partner today,
Ooh,
actually today. And the way we're doing it is we are building the plane while we fly it, which is so not my MO. It makes me ridiculously uncomfortable to be doing so.
I'm here for you if you need some free therapy.
I might end up crying. Who knows? But we launched it knowing that we wanted certain people to jump in immediately. So we're selling it at a very low price point initially. And it will go up from there because we're testing it. The people that are paying the lower amount are going to be our beta. They're going to tell us what we could do better. So that's one way you could. I'm a big advocate for not doing too much for free. If you do it for free, you have now set your value at 0, and everyone's going to come to you and think you're free. And then when you throw out your price of your true worth, they're going to be like, what? So ask for something, have some skin in the game. We're not working for free anymore. Let's not do that. Then really, there are all kinds of online platforms you can use to figure out what your hourly rate should be. If you're going to offer services that are outside of hourly rates, then work from there. My time is going to cost this much to do this thing. This is how many people I'm doing, and start putting if you're going to do packages and stuff like that. And then also take into account what you bring to the table. All three of us on this call have been in corporate, been in the C-suite, been in business for such a long time. The knowledge base is way bigger than if I just jumped out of college. I'm like, I'm going to be a business consultant and I'm going to charge X, Y, and Z. No, your time the value is bigger. So the cost should also be associated that way.
I also think, you said, how do you balance value with like getting paid? But I think that those are not in opposition, like Raven was saying, right? Like they should be together.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because pricing is kind of more art than science in many ways. You have to really figure out like what Raven is saying and she's doing, right? Like understand what your customer is willing to pay, because what your cost is one thing. But what the person is willing to pay and what your customers are willing to pay might not be different. And then you have to figure out which are your right customers that are going to be willing to pay what your cost is, which is why, okay, your prices, like you said, are pretty high, but that's because your target audience is for that.
Yes.
So it's very important to think about that too.
No, I think that's right. And to me, like, it's funny. I happened to catch, I'm going to give her a shout out, Yinka's live earlier this week. Actually, it was yesterday. Like, I never catch people's lives. But yesterday I just happened to be on my computer, and there she was, and the topic was explaining free, right? And the thing is, like, something might not come as a cost to you, right? As somebody who's a consumer, you might be thinking, oh, well, this is free, so that means it's not valuable, and insert whatever kind of like negative connotation you put to it, because you're not shelling out anything for it, right? Except your time. But, something that she said that I and it's something I believe, is like the time that the person is even just doing the thing for free. Like, forget the time before, the time that was spent, just the fact that they've now given you, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour of their life that they can never get back, to provide this value to you, right? And so, like, understanding that, like, that's like a priceless commodity that you've now gotten, and then comparing that to the price points for what, for even spending an hour with them, right? Like, what does an hour look like? And so I'm actually, like, I guess I'm friendly with him. I'm friendly with one of the, like, sometimes guest Shark Tank hosts sometimes. And like, I just randomly, like, became friends with this guy last year without even meaning to. And and so, like, we talk from time to time, and I remember I was like telling him, like, oh, I want you to mentor me, and he was like, you don't need me to mentor you, like, you're fine, like, you just need to, like, handle your business, like, You're fine. And then like I actually found like he does do like mentoring, and for 15 minutes of conversation with him, I think it's like $1,000.
Wow.
Right? And I thought to myself, like, unless you're showing up to that 15-minute call ready, bro.
Rapid fire. Rapid fire.
Like that could, like you might just take that all-inclusive vacation to Cabo. I'm just saying, like because it's like such a, to me, but again, like putting price, just to kind of like give people perspective on pricing because of who he is. Like he runs a couple private equity firms, best-selling author, like he's done a lot. Like he's shaped a lot of the economics, right, that we kind of like see right now. And so like to me, when I remember when I saw that, I was like, okay, I understand why he was like, no, you don't, like he was like, girl, you got like 3 advanced degrees, get away from me, like go handle your business, right? And so like, how, I guess for me, my next question is like, what, like outside of like friends, like I remember, oh my God, do you remember our first conversation, Raven, where like, me and Raven connected, and we haven't met in person yet, just
Tell
so
me
y'all
why
know.
we connected, because it's my favorite story.
You think I remember?
She came into the comments of a conversation and said, I'm in there like swimwear. I was like,
Oh,
we were going to be best friends. I'm in there like swimwear. Close, like, I just want to be in your orbit, if you can say that kind of stuff.
You see what happens, like the shenanigans. Like, so I'm so used to shenanigans, I completely forgot that I said that to you. Because I'm literally always slipping. I'm comment, like if you even follow me for a second, like follow me for 5 minutes on LinkedIn, and you'll be like, yo, what is happening right now? Because I am literally inserting myself in like every kind of conversation. Like some of the fights, like I got into a fight today about America versus like Europe being better. And like and for me, like I wasn't even saying that, but like somebody from England was like, "Oh, America's the worst." And like I didn't know that they were from England. But in my head I was like, "Oh, she probably from England." Cuz she just had that, like I could tell it was like a generation of like anger towards America that I was getting. And like even her assumption that I was American, I don't know. I guess it says I'm in America on my stuff. Maybe she checked. But she was like, "Oh, Americans," she was like, "Americans have this attitude like they're better than everybody." And I remember thinking, "Oh, she from England." And and then she started talking about her network. And she was like, I know a lot of people who, who can attest to Europe being, they would rather live in Europe than America. Like, so this is a conversation, like, this is like the pettiness that I was engaging in earlier today before I got on this call, right? And
right. Aubria, from now on, just message me and be like, I'm about to go into a fight. It is not worth your time. You could have been making $1,000 an hour.
Exactly.
No, it didn't even take that long.
Same thing was going through my head.
It took 3 minutes. It was fun for me. It was entertaining. I had just woken up. I was like, you need like your brain juices flowing for when you get on the call. So like I was using her, for to prep me for the call.
Can you please go back that message and be like, thank you for the brain juice?
I did. I actually, she was going off and I was like, oh my God, I needed that so much. Thank you for everything. Like, so like, it wasn't even. And the reason I bring this up is because like, as an entrepreneur who like has a digital presence, your behavior online, your how you interact with people, you know, in the comments, your posts, even in the DMs, okay? Because we screenshotting everything these days, you know? And so, you
Nothing is safe. Nothing
you
is
know,
safe.
like you, like if you're sending it to someone, like you have to, you know, you kind of have to be mindful, right? And so, like, as much as I get into my little things online, if you read what I say and you know me, you're like, oh, look at her. Look at her just showing off, arguing, and still managing to look like a professional on this site when we know she doesn't even care about this. But you have to know me to know that, right? But for me, because like if somebody engages me, I don't want to come off as dismissive. I don't, you know, I don't want to be mean to people. Like I don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, today's the day I'm gonna be mean to people. Like I don't have the energy. Like if you're the type of person that makes me want to be mean, I can't hang out with you.
Yeah, why would you?
I just can't. Like that's just not my vibe. I know like some people are into that, but that's just not my vibe, right? And so, you know, let's talk a little bit about like how we present, whether, you know, in real life or online as entrepreneurs can have, you know, lasting impact, positive or negative, on our businesses. And, you know, and what are some ways we can, you know, improve ourselves, or, you know, even just check ourselves to make sure that we're always presenting the person that we are, that we truly are, and really making sure like every image of us, you know, is exactly who we are versus like some fake persona that we're putting out there, you know. So like let's get into that. Maricella, I'll
you have
let you
thoughts?
take it.
I have thoughts because I do believe in, you know, the word authenticity has been thrown around like this kind of buzzword for a long time now. But I do believe, like you said, you have to present yourself as who you are. Don't try to be anyone else because it's not going to work. People can read right through that. But always, I think what you're saying about being kind and being respectful, like treat people with respect. It doesn't hard. And then in what I would say, so for me, I will tell you this. When I started my podcast, there were people afterwards who told me, who would ask me, aren't you scared that no one's going to want to work with you or hire you because of the name of your show? And I kind of thought about it for a little bit. I was like, interesting perspective. But then I realized I don't want to work with those people. And I think that that's true. Like know who you, again, go back to know your audience and know who you want to be around with, around of, and who you want to work, the type of people you want to be with. And usually it's going to be some people that will kind of mesh with the way you are. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I approach it, at least.
No, I think that's right. I think that's spot on. Raven, additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I will agree. I think podcast is hacking the patriarchy. I think about it all the time too. Is this going to ruin my future somehow?
Yeah.
And it might. Who knows? Still TBD. Census is out on that. But
so sad.
It is a way, being yourself and sincere is a way to weed out the people that you shouldn't be working with and surrounding yourself with anyway. So that's the first thing. Last year, someone said it on a panel and I loved it. They said, I have to be kind, but I don't have to be nice. Ooh. And I was just like, oh, there it is. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So that's a really good one. I also, words matter, right? They really do. So when you're in these social places, profiles, places you're expressing your opinions, I think that you should only be willing to say the things you're willing to have an open conversation about. Yeah. I'll use the example. You had a post about the Pope, Aubria. I made a comment and someone else commented. I didn't know how to take the comment. I was like, was that I was unsure of the response, but I was willing to have an open conversation about it. Like I might have presented wrong.
Yeah.
They might have interpreted. There are so many things. But when you put something out there, be willing to have the conversation.
No, I think that's right. Like
Very
for
different.
that's actually my MO. Like if I haven't commented on, like, if we roll on LinkedIn, like, I'm vibing on your page, you vibing on my page, and you notice I did not comment on something, please understand I saw it and I made a decision to excuse myself from that conversation before I even entered, you know? And like, and that's just, and for me, like, it's not always the subject matter. The cool thing about being a professor for as long as I was and teaching, I mean, I was teaching writing and research courses, but we spent a lot in like social justice and like self and society identity type question, like we were in the heavy stuff every semester. And so like I had to learn how to teach those, like basically navigate those courses without impacting my students in a way that they would be afraid to speak in my class, one. And then I had to also be open enough to hear something that I didn't agree with and not shut it down just because I didn't agree with it, right? And so like that's why I think I'm a little bit better at communicating online than the average person. It's just I've been practicing for a while, okay? But like I actually had somebody wrote me into a conversation maybe a month ago, and I was like, why did they do that? Like, I don't tag people into mess. Like, if I'm tagging you, you're getting on a podcast, you finding a client. Like, I'm not tagging you to be messy. I'm not about that life. Okay. Like, if I want to be messy, I'll go be messy by myself, So like you can have plausible deniability, right? But like, and so I remember they roped me into it and it was within my wheelhouse, but the people that were engaging in the conversation, they were so polar in their mentality about the thing. And I like to say a lot of people online, they have these like pre-written scripts, right? And so you say something, they respond. Now you're like, wait, did I say any of these things? And now you're going back to your comment to see, like, I don't remember saying that. And now you're like in a fight that like you didn't necessarily sign up for because that person, they just had like, they're like pre-scripted, long-winded responses that anybody that said anything on said subject matter was gonna get, right? And now you're in like a can of worms that you didn't sign up for. And so that's what ended up happening to me. And like, and it got to the point where like I read everything they wrote and I remember thinking, hey, we are actually on the same side of this argument, and I'm not sure why they haven't figured that out. And so I responded and I was like, hey, actually, like after reading everything that you said, which like I'll admit, sometimes when people are crazy, I just leave conversations. I do it in real life too. Like if you get too crazy, I would just walk away. I would just walk away and get in my car. I do not care. like if you want to reconcile later, I will talk to you when you're not being crazy. Like that's just how I am. Like I'm not gonna let you stress me out because you want to be crazy. And so like, and they wanted to fight about how we didn't agree. And so like how, and this is kind of like taking us away, but to me it's like this is how like you have to kind of like rein it in as somebody who is running a business. When you're online, you kind of have to know, hey, you know what? I saw the crowd who's talking here. I think I'm just going to skip it. Like, no good is going to come from this because I know their vibe, right? And then there are those moments like that. Like I think you handled that well. Like I remember your response.
Well, I have to go.
Yeah, it was like a really I don't know. It's like one of my more obnoxious LinkedIn posts. But I was basically kind of like, don't start with your Pope posts. I don't have the energy for it. Like I know you're a heathen. You know,
did use the word heathen, which I loved. I was like, well, I'm not a heathen, or at least I don't identify as a heathen. Maybe I am.
Yeah. Well, you know, like it's funny because like I feel like in like my house, like I come from a Christian home, right? And so like I remember when I was younger, like it was something we would like say to like the people who maybe like quote unquote backslid, be like, oh yeah, you know, but we would say it to your face, oh yeah, we know you're a heathen on this matter. You know, but like you could be pious in one thing and be a heathen in another thing kind of situation. It was like, you know, so like I think we use it as a joke, but like we know that's a word. It's like infidel, right? Like these were words that were used back in the day to justify a lot of crazy stuff. And I basically hint on that too. Like, I'm sorry, you know, like I know like we like the Pope and everything, but like let's be honest, like the Catholic Church is crazy. It's kind of what I said.
Which I agree. I just really liked that Pope. To me, that was
he was good. Yeah, no, he was a really no, he like to me what I liked about him, you know, was he didn't like come from a place of judgment. You know,
sorry, we're not talking about the Pope.
Yeah, we should probably move on from the Pope. I mean,
but you know, the Pope was kind of an entrepreneur. And we just
should add him to my slides.
I can't believe it. But listen, we're having a real conversation here. Like, if you did want to hear us have a real conversation, you shouldn't sign up. Like, I'm sorry. We love you. Thank you for coming. But I actually want to talk about entrepreneurs, which is why I slickly said that. You know, because like there's so much emphasis on entrepreneurship, right? And not really a lot of thought to how you can actually be an entrepreneur within an organization, right? On a specific team that you're on. And so, you know, let's talk about that. Like I think that would be like a good place for us to kind of end our conversation, you know, talk about like those moments when you were developing your entrepreneurship skills on somebody else's dime.
Oh, I don't know that I've ever done it on anyone else's dime. But so, I think that sorry, entrepreneurship is important for like the testing and the is this right for me? But at the same time, I feel like a lot of companies say, we want you to be an entrepreneur. But do they really? Do they really? Like, are they like they're saying it, but are they really supporting it? That's a slippery slope, I feel.
You have to find a place for it. I think you have to find a place for it, or sometimes you're lucky and it happens. Like in my first job, I was just lucky. I ended up landing in a team that was forming, and I had the chance to help build it and what we were going to do and all these things. Yeah, and that was in a big company, so that was like city. But then I did work in a small company, and there you can be very entrepreneurial, right? Like if you go to a place with actually has that spirit, mostly will be startups and mostly will be companies that are a little smaller. You will be able to do things and innovate and try things out and see if it works. And people are used to that risk. I think that's why that type of companies will allow this a lot more, because they are used to that risk. And because honestly, if you have 5 people on your team, 10 people, 25 people, you want everyone to be doing something, right? Like there is a different aspect of entrepreneurship in a smaller company, for sure.
Yeah. For me, I actually kind of see it in like 2 ways. And so the first way, like I'll use my first job for like I got like a part-time job at Staples in high school. And
I'm not done, seriously.
So like if you ever need like a copier, like, and you're not sure, I got you. All in one machine, I got you. But I digress. And so I remember like I worked that job for like 6 months, and I like graduated high school, and like I was gonna start college in the fall. And so I went to like try to quit my job because I was like, oh, I'm gonna enjoy my summer. And I remember my boss being like, oh, we were thinking about promoting you to department head for the copy and print department. And now I was a manager. And I wasn't like a manager of a small budget. Like I had $1 million budget as an 18-year-old who worked maybe 30 days with the company. And so, and like my mom always says, oh, it's because like you were really good at managing yourself as a kid. So like God like honored you in this, she like spiritualized it in that way. And like as I get older, I'm like, maybe that's what really happened, because like I was managing the finances at the house. So like I knew how to manage a budget. I just never had a budget that big. And so like I always thought of myself as an entrepreneur within that larger store, because I had to make sure this contribution happened. And then like it did. Like, and I remember the first year that it did, I was like, what? Like, this makes no sense. But part of it was like, I had the belief, like, I had the support and belief of the person that put me in that role, right? And then I had a team of people who, although many of them had been working for years, were willing to work with me, right? And so like having like it was just like the perfect setup, right? So what Maricella was saying about having the right team, having the right space to do that, it's definitely possible to do it and thrive. And I mean, like, I ended up getting promoted like 3 times while I was at Staples. I mean, they pay for college, you know? And so like I remember like even transferring to a New York City store, like initially, and so like I got the benefit of like from being a good entrepreneur. It was like I got the perks and benefits that went with that, right? But on the flip side, I also think of it as we're all actually entrepreneurs because we're selling our time, right? So whether we're functioning as an employee, right, in this like employee employer relationship or not, in our particular roles, we can actually decide like I'm going to max out in this role, right? And to me, like again, I think it really depends on that environment, because there are going to be environments where you just don't feel safe doing that, right? But if you come into an environment where you're like, oh, like I really like it here, or I really like the work that I'm doing, and so I'm going to try to learn as much as I can in this role. Part of that is being willing to take initiative, being willing to become a leader, being willing to take feedback, right? Even like the stuff you don't want to hear, like, oh, we really need you to come to the office, like it's not work from home anymore, just to make it relevant. Like because I feel like that, honestly, I think like that's probably like the biggest argument people are having right now, is they don't want to have to trek to an office, right? And so like being willing to kind of do the give and take, I think is really important. And being an entrepreneur, it actually insulates you in some way because, as a CEO, you're actually an entrepreneur, right? And although like the buck kind of ends with you as a CEO of a company, at the end of the day, any major risk is on the company, right? Is on the board of the company.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say, even when you're the CEO, sometimes you are, you still have a boss.
Yeah, and exactly, right? And so like understanding that like you might seem like an entrepreneur or you may seem like you're not, but sometimes you're really just kind of playing that boundary line of both, depending on the role that you have, depending on the level of responsibility you have, and the access to like the inner workings of the job, right? And so, ladies, we are over time. So I want you guys to give your final words. Like what's your final advice for people who are, thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or already in it? Like what kind of advice would you 3 points that you want to give to them?
Man.
Wow.
Sorry. You could pull from stuff we already said.
I'll give some. I'll go back to the pricing because I had some thoughts and we kind of moved right along, and I didn't say it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to take credit for anything I'm about to say because I didn't create it. But I heard a woman once talk about pricing, and this is if you're going to offer packages or different services. She said, start out by offering low cost, high value, then move them into medium cost, medium value. And then the end of that funnel is high cost, super high value. And so I found that to work really well in a lot of situations. On my podcast, I had a gal named Heather O'Neill come on, and she said, choose a rate and say it at every turn. Say it in the mirror until you're not betting against yourself, negotiating against yourself. Like just keep saying it until you can say it to someone else.
Yeah, I love that. So one, start with providing the value, and then have a step up, have 2 to 3 steps up where you're increasing the value as you're increasing the price. So like at each step, value must go up. And I think that's a really
I have another one too. None of this is mine though. I heard this the other day and it was
that's fine. Brilliant. That's fine.
This guy said you sell the what, the why, and you give away the what, the why, the where, and you sell the how. And I was just like mind blown.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I need to like come back and listen to that. Maricella.
The pricing stuff is interesting, and it's I agree with you, Raven. I will say though, as you were saying, like say it in the mirror, especially for women, there's so much research that we tend to underprice, particularly our service. So I would say just whenever you think you're going to price at, go an extra 20%, just to be safe. By that, I mean, really go and see your competitors and what they're pricing. Don't just think of what you are thinking. What would I say? What advice would I give? I forgot. One was I would go back to what Raven said at the beginning, which is try stuff and make sure and know that you are testing and that you are getting feedback. And just as if you are in a company and you have to be open to feedback from your boss, you have to be open to feedback for your consumers. However, sometimes they might tell you they want X, Y, or Z. They might not know what they need. They know very well what their problem is, but they don't know the solution. That's why they're coming to you. So think about that. Think about how you're going to address their problem versus, I want X. And try to consume a lot. There's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of people who are great and have great advice. Podcasts are a great way to get that. And you can learn a lot from just the stuff that's online, honestly.
Yeah. And I'll give my 3. And so my first thing is going to be like, get whole. Like if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be a leader, period, like you need to focus on your wholeness. So get spiritually well, get mentally well, get physically well, because those 3 things are going to impact your social wellness. It's going to impact your professional wellness, your financial wellness, and even just like how you shift the spaces that you enter. So the environmental spaces that you go, like whether it's in you go to a friend's house or you go into a boardroom, like what kind of energy are you bringing into the room is going to really be reliant on how well you are. So like that's something I'll say. And you know, and for me, like that's something I've always practiced because I know me, like if I don't get the amount of sleep that Aubria needs, you do not want to deal with me. Okay? If I haven't eaten, you also do not want to deal with me. If I didn't pray, you do not want to deal with me, you know. And these are just things that are a part of my life, right? And like I work out, and so like do and there's a balancing, right? So like there are going to be those times when you're more well in certain areas, and other time, and you know, in some areas you're kind of lacking, and so it's always making sure that you're getting the refills that you need in the areas that you're lacking, because not everything is going at, you know. And we hear about work-life balance all the time, but I really don't believe in that. I believe in personal harmony.
Ooh, I like that.
You know, because ultimately, like if you are in harmony with yourself, then you're going to be aligned with your goals. You're going to know what you want. You know, you're going to be able to have those conversations with clients and not be second guessing yourself because you've done the hard work with yourself so that you can show up and be your best self. So that will be my one thing. Be well. The second thing, understand that you don't know everything.
Very important.
Like no matter how smart you are, that has been my bread and butter in life. Being willing to let people teach me things I think I know. And like have them take credit for teaching me the thing. Like I've had people teach me about leadership after I had 15 years of leadership. And they only had 2.
Yeah.
You know, but like sometimes people just have a different way of doing things. So just keep your ears open, be willing to learn. And then the last thing, like please and thank you. Like I know it's really basic, but please and thank you, and not just the words, like the expression of those words, because I think a lot of times people say please and thank you, but they don't really give please and thank you. You know, there's this kind of expectation that everybody has of everyone's time these days, everybody's resources these days. Like I know we've all gotten the can I pick your brain, you know, requests. You know, but really get into that frame of mind that like nobody actually owes you anything. Right? And so, like, even if you put goodness out in the world, like, no one's required, there's like no law that you're supposed to reciprocate. Like, we created that law. Like, it's not a real law, right? And so understanding that, like, how you value what people do for you really impacts their willingness to show up and do for you later. You know, because like I'll say for me at least, I would rather help a stranger person every single day for the rest of my life than help an ungrateful person more than once. Right? And so like I know we ending on like that's like
can I lay on one more thing?
Raven has one more thing she wants to say.
After we did all of that, if you are in the United States and you're thinking about starting a business or you're in the early stages, go check out your local SBDC, Small Business Development Center. Your taxes are already paying for it. Go get the support you need. There it is. That's
good. That's good. Oh, one more thing. If you reach out to people to collaborate, please show up with stuff. Like, stop trying to collaborate with people and have them do all the work. I know you entrepreneurs. I know people are having this happen to them. I mean, it just happened to me like 3 times today. So, you know, good old DMs. But thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so grateful for you, Raven. I'm so grateful for you, Maricella. I am so excited to see what we do in Q. Where are we in Q2?
Don't even start. Oh my goodness. What are you trying to do?
Follow us on LinkedIn. I'm not gonna tell anybody to sign up for anything, because that's not what this is about. But if you really liked what any of us had to say and you feel like, oh, I think I could work with that person, reach out. Like maybe we'll be like, nah, you don't have to work with me, like you got it, because that's who we are. Or we'll say, oh, I can help you. And so, or we might recommend somebody for you. So these are your options. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are always online, so you can always reach us there. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.